It's that time of the week again. It's Friday, so we're having a new TLF. Only this time, this time
was spicy.
Listen, we are looking at the first round of logs for the new raid on Rage DPS. Yes. Now we know this is not telling anything at all, but it is interesting to make a tier list based on these. And then further down the line, when everybody gets their double Legos and tier sets and whatever, we're gonna have like a full-on picture and see how things have shifted, because things will be shifted, okay? So,
well, I mean, it is just heroic, but it is pretty much everybody and their mom. Like if you've been in the WoW Twitch section, you'll see that everybody's raiding right now. So we can clearly make a rough assumption that pretty much everybody's playing the raid, and it's fun to see people bringing their specs that ideally they like to play and playing them, and you know, fuck that meta shit, man.
Yeah, fuck the meta. It's not meta right now. But you know what can be meta? Curseforge, baby, because it's a new patch right now, 9.2. You want your add-ons, you want your new add-ons, you want your old add-ons updated on one button. This is Curseforge for you, super easy to use. You can check them out. They have like almost on a weekly basis updates and fixes and quality of life improvements, not to mention the fact that all of the add-on creators get a good slice of the pie as well, so it's a win-win for everybody. Curseforge has been like a long-time partner for our channel. We had like beautiful relationship with them, not to mention the platform. We use all our add-ons there, we update them, they check new ones, make videos about it. It's all beautiful. So what you have to do is first watch the video, and after you finish, do the sign now. Check the link in the description.
I only have one job, I mean.
Check the link in the description and go ahead and support Curseforge, because they are supporting awesome content.
It's pretty cool.
All right, now let's get into it. Affliction Warlock, baby. As time will tell, things might change, but for now, looking at Affliction without the tier set and without double legendaries, which doesn't really indicate the position.
It's not shining.
It's not really shining at the moment, because other specs. So here's the deal: you're gonna look at specs that without shards of domination and without like the upcoming powers, external powers, will perform better than others. Just like I would say, almost the baseline kit delivers better. But in this situation, Affliction
is okay. Okay, listen, see, this is a good example of how the rest of the video is gonna go, so you can get like a basic grasp. For right now, in terms of logs, overall performance across the community, Affliction is D tier. It's supposedly the worst range DPS spec. However,
right now, but
if you check in, I think I was checking in limits the other day, their number one DPS, I don't know what boss they were doing. It might have been the third one. It doesn't matter. It was Affliction, and by like 10 to 20% above everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So it's not really indicative of the spec's potential, but it is kind of what people are getting out of the spec as it is right now. Likely is that it will rise up in the tier list, and when the double legendary and the tier set drop, we might see a different story with Affliction.
Of course, and this is going to be available for every spec over here, okay? It's just an interesting experiment to see how the specs are ranking up right now. It's going to be a totally different picture in the future. Arcane Mage up next, which, hello, baby! This goes to show...
I mean, we called it. We kind of
called it, but it's early to just say it right out the get-go that Arcane is going to be one of the top performing specs. It looks like it right now, but again, we have to look at like all of the changes that happened during 9.1.5, the changes and tuning that happened for 9.2, and basically right now Arcane's like base performance without the external power for 9.2 is pretty awesome.
It's pretty high. It's pretty high. And what's also cool, and if you have rated a little bit, you'll know that even though there are a bunch of ads for a bunch of bosses, priority damage is actually important, because you have a couple of ads that you really want to get down quick, at least at the beginning part of the raid. So, I mean, we all know that Arcane does crazy priority damage. So right now, Arcane is about 8 tier.
8 tier, baby.
It's really high. It's not the top, but it's like way above the middle class specs.
It's good, and Arcane is one hell of a fun spec, and it's nice to see them so high right now in the I would say a couple of hundred logs so far. But we're gonna see how things change. All right, next up, Beastmaster Hunter, the spec that a Academy Award astrophysicist would play. I would just say it right off the get-go, really good. really good. You love it,
Beast
man.
Mastery is a spec that got like a lot of stuff going for it in Sanctum of Domination.
Gotta maintain
Obviously
that
with the
phrasing,
domination
man.
shards, but also you have, you know, the legendary bow with the quiver as well, which fuel a little bit of power into Beastmaster, and it's likely that the top Beastmasters right now are running those in going into Zerath Mortis, which is going to be, let's say, maybe a power gap between Beastmasters and their other specs right now.
Sepulchre. Their mother is the zone. Sepulchre.
If you look at the logs at this moment, on everybody that's playing the raid, the number one spec in the raid for range DPS is Beastmaster.
Yeah, but this is on all percentiles. But why we're looking here is at 95.
Yeah, 95
plus, yes.
percentile and higher, basically people who can pull off their spec close to perfection. Beastmaster is still ahead of Arcane, but it's still A tier.
A tier.
It's doing really well. Beastmaster always had really good single target. Its AoE is okay, it's just natural cleave, but like I mentioned before, so far at the beginning of the raid, it looks like priority single target damage is where it's at. We'll see how we go for the remainder of the raid.
Yes. Now, my favorite spec of all time, Boomkins on the matter here, and yeah, this is really weird because we know Boomkins will be great further down the line, but the performance right now is
Affliction knee, but not really. Currently, Boomkins are in C tier, but I come back to the argument that we made for Affliction in case you didn't watch that part. The top guilds, I know I've seen Limit, I might have peaked at Echo and Method as well. Some of them are running a lot of Boomkins, their second Boomkins, and sure, maybe their overall damage at the end is not that great, but to push phases and to push mechanics, Boomkin is still one of the strongest burst single target specs in the game.
And even in our guild, like the Boomkins we have in our guild, like when we raided last night, it was like, okay, the top damage all across the board, no problem there, regardless of the boss we were in. So this is like an indicator of an overall performance in terms of like 95 percentiles, but you're gonna have Boomkins just dominate the charts all over the place, even still. And don't be drawing any conclusions. Once again, we're gonna like do this disclaimer on every spec. This basically means nothing. It's just, once again, it's an interesting scope on things.
Coming back in like a month or two from now, we're gonna be looking at this and say, oh, hey, well, how about that? How about that Demonology Warlock, which is again another one of these specs that are, let's say, the top Warlocks are playing Demonology at the moment. It is currently the top performing Warlock spec, spoiler for Destro, and it's currently, I would say it's about B tier.
B tier, better than Boomkin at the point.
Yeah, better than Boomkin, but still played in the top guilds. The thing with Demonology Warlocks, obviously you're probably gonna want a Warlock for the gates and the Hellstones and all that. It's really good.
It's a blessing.
And the Soulstone as well is really good for progression. It does feel like if you look at the top, let's say top DPSers in the world, just ranked by, you know, number one, number two by all stars and stuff on logs at the very least, Demo is way up more up in the top than most other specs as well. So I would expect Demo to be at least A tier in about a month, something like that. I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Right now, it's looking pretty decent. You know, as the raid just started, pretty good performance, and you're always gonna have Warlocks in your team regardless of the spec or performance. Now, the last Warlock spec to be addressed in this list is actually Destro Lock worse than Affliction at this moment?
No, I don't think it. No, it's definitely Affliction. It looks to be the bottom of the barrel.
That's better, yeah.
Destro is a bit more
better than Boomkin.
Damage. But however, there's still a gap between Destro and Boomkin. This was a little bit hard to do. You could put it at the bottom of the C tier or top of the D tier. I would put it at the top of the D tier.
Yeah.
Because even with the tier set, I would expect Destro to shine a little bit more in AoE than in single target. That doesn't mean it's a bad spec. However, it remains to be seen how good it is. Plus, having it to contend with Demonology, which seems to be king of the Warlocks right now, kind of sees Destro a little bit more at the bottom, at least in terms of overall numbers that we have.
It is pretty cool actually to just mention this. Okay, all of these specs are represented in a lot of guilds and a lot of groups, and if you take each spec individually and place it in a group where that spec is being played by a player to like its full capacity, he'll probably be somewhere in the top list of the charts. But looking at the grand scheme of things and all of the players who submitted logs on this, and this, you know what's really important? Right now, there's not that much cheeses going on. You know what I'm saying? It's basically the first time you get into the raid, cheese mechanics are to, I won't say they're not there, but they're to a minimum.
It's kind of hard to exploit considering that even we had at least a boss that was tested on PTR that was changed when we went into the raid. So some of the tactics that we kind of prepared for had to be changed as well because of the nerfs and the buffs and the overall reworks of some of the boss. I think one of them specifically was reworked a little bit. So even if you wanted to cheese, I mean, right now people are progressing. They want to get as much done to get their tier pieces as much so that they can start the Mythic Week, which we are waiting for as well, with ideally the most amount of tier bonuses spread across the entire raid as possible.
Yeah, man, no, it's pure times now. Okay, let's move along to Elemental. And I was really expecting Elemental to perform better because I knew like the base kit of it without the Shards of Domination or whatever, we're doing pretty good. However,
well, see, there's a trick to Elemental which is not really relevant to the video today, but kind of relevant to the video today, and that is that Elemental has to contend with another Shaman DPS spec right now.
Yes.
So
the
likely
comes out.
Likely, a lot of the top Elemental Shamans might not be playing Elemental unless they off spec enhancement as well. It's still doing around Boomkin-y, a little bit better than Boomkin in overall ranking. So it's kind of C tier. It's not all the way P. No, there's a chance, but I expect Elemental to be one of the better specs going further into the patch based on how kind of the tier bonuses are and how the double legendaries will work. Sure. So I'm actually really curious to see when the fights are ironed out, when we have, you know, better mechanics, better understanding, better performance, better min-maxing on all of the fights and cooldowns and such. Elemental might shine one. I would expect it to be A tier, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, now the Mage brothers are coming in, which is interesting to note right now. Okay, starting off with Fire Mage. Fire Mage is doing insanely good at the moment. I mean, good. I've seen streams, I've seen videos. I know we have our guild who has like a Fire Mage within, which is like raking meters. It's really, really good. Will that last? This is the big question. After everybody gets their tier sets and double Legos, I mean, I've seen the Fire Mage community not being too happy about the tier bonus. Double legendaries will be great, but just currently looking at the performance of the Fire Mages right now, and I will add this asterisk. A lot of people actually talked before the release of the raid to actually switch to Frost. We'll see that for why in a minute. But right now, Fire Mage in the first couple of logs is S tier, baby. S tier.
This is the first S tier spec. Yeah.
So Fire Mage is, I mean, has historically been very good at single target and priority damage as well with combustion, and obviously out of the all mages specs, I mean, you could have a competition between Fire and Arcane, I suppose. The Frost has always lacked a little bit of single target. However, it's probably going to get that through the tier set.
Yeah, it's gonna get
with the Comet Storm procs.
Yeah, it's gonna get
So speaking of Frost, right now, the #1 DPS in the world on logs is a Frost Mage.
Yes.
However, across everybody playing Frost Mage is about B tier. A little bit lower than Demo, surprisingly. Yeah. However, need I remind you that both Demo and Frost are top tier specs that the best of the best are actually playing in the guild regardless of how everybody's performing on these specs. I won't say necessarily that they're difficult specs, but they're probably not very easy. So I would see maybe people are playing a lot of Frost Mage, you know, in the anticipation of getting the tier set and of course double legendaries eventually. So I would expect Frost Mage again to be a spec that would jump a little bit more.
Everybody's kind of projecting this like Frost Mage to be like kind of king in terms of like all range specs, but as it stands currently we see Fire, which is great. I love Fire Mage, you know, Flame doesn't really love it that much, but I love just I actually love just seeing it because I love the spec, and it just when you see that combust go out, it's crazy. There's a point to be made on this early like login stuff without external powers and all of that. It usually happens that the specs that can do well in AoE, that can do well in cleave, you can usually see them in the top tiers. This is the same story for melees as well. Like if you look at melees, Outlaw will be among the first. This will change. Don't worry about it. Okay, this doesn't mean nothing. Okay, don't make any decisions yet. It's just we're making this video. First off, to see how specs are doing right now, and then to look in a month from
Jesus, man, we're probably gonna rename this video to DLF Disclaimer List Friday.
That's it, man.
I mean, we want to cover all grounds, and it's not, let's move on to Marksmanship, which again, Marksmanship is a very good spec.
Oh yeah, man.
Very little going for, with very little to fuel its parlance with very little external powers. Kind of how it was in Ethria. Oh, you remember, man?
I remember.
Ethria?
Listen, I watched Gingy from Echo actually on his stream playing Marksman, and he was kind of wrecking shit. I mean, not like the best of the best, but he was up there looking really good. I've seen also some BM hunters.
Well, I mean, Marksman is about A tier, right?
It is A tier, but apparently
smidge behind Arcane.
Yeah, from the logs, at least the first couple of logs, it does appear that both BM and Arcane are taking just a slice better than Marksman, but it's like really close. So Marksman A tier for sure right now. We're gonna see like out of all of the hunter specs. I'm gonna talk about survival, though it's not arranged. Dude, come on, there's gonna be a lot of fights, and we know there's a lot of fights with a lot of cleave and ads and stuff. It's gonna be good for
yeah,
survival.
we'll see about survival. We're eventually gonna get to the melee version
probably next week.
Thank God I'm playing a tank now, so okay.
Okay, last one on the list, one of our favorite specs of all time, Shadow Priest.
This might have been the most surprising one of the bunch, considering how much single target priests had and how many times they have been nerfed on PTR.
Yeah, they got nerfed as well. But well, you could argue that the nerf that they had last time was kind of warranted a bit. It was a little bit crazy. But that didn't really like put them into the ground. And you have to remember, like the tests that were done on the PTR were tests made with the tier set and the double Legos.
Yeah, we don't really have those yet, so.
Probably the nerfs aren't really that like holding that much ground when we're looking at the performances right now. But in terms of like where the spectrum is on the fight so far, it's not that bad. I would say it's somewhere B tier, probably a little bit worse than Frost, right?
Yeah, right now statistical wise, it's a little bit worse than Frost Mage, but again, Shadow Priest is one of the specs that I would expect to jump a little bit more once you get the 4-piece and the double legendary. So we'll have to see. This is kind of how the tier list is looking at right now in the first, well, we say first week, but it's literally been like 2 to 3 days.
It's a couple of days
we
of
recorded
logs.
this.
Yeah, very early.
Right now it's Thursday as we're recording this, so likely by the time you're watching this is going to be different, which is maybe even more interesting if you look at the logs and look at the video right now, and you'll see a difference. You can kind of see the evolution of how the damage specs will perform going further and further into the tier.
Yeah, this is just a snapshot in time, right, for you to check further down the line. Okay, it's not, again, it doesn't mean anything. You cannot draw any conclusions from this. It's just an interesting state of the range DPS in the raid right now. Obviously and guaranteed, this will all shift around, and it's going to be very cool to see how these specs will actually be I would say switch places with the gain of tier sets and double Legos. But that being said,
you know what else is legendary, man?
Legendary, I know who's legendary. The Patreons. And listen, if you're looking at this right now, you should be very thankful to our Patreons, because they make a lot of this stuff possible. Okay, they're supporting the TLFs on Friday, they're supporting the MO Cast podcast, they're supporting the On Cooldown Wednesday shows, they're supporting what else? The class guides that are coming as well, 9.2 class guides, and it's, man,
pretty much everything.
Pretty much everything. So thank you to the Patreons for their unending love. And listen, Flame is asked to tell you something right now.
Well, thank you for watching the video. See you next time.
I was thinking if you want to become a Patreon, just check the link in the description. But yeah, thanks for watching the video. Bye.
Well, what he said.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.